I'm just going to give it another minute before we start.
No, I'm good now. So no.
Okay, awesome. It is 6:32, and I'm going to go ahead and start. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Policy Matrix's webinar series. Through this series, Policy Matrix aims to connect policy experts with policy enthusiasts. Today, we've got with us Mr. Rohan Mitra. Mr. Mitra is the head of government relations at Adobe India and is responsible for leading Adobe's initiatives with the Indian government. He is also the chairman of the Indian Committee of the Information Technology Industry Council. We'll be starting off this webinar with Mr. Mitra speaking a little bit about his early education and his experience working in governmental relations with organizations like the Associated Chambers of Commerce and Industry of India. Mr. Mitra, to you.
Thanks a lot, Navya. And let me begin with thanking the Policy Matrix for inviting me here to share my experiences as a policy professional. When Abhishek first reached out to me, say almost around a month back, I realized that there has been a sea change in the field of public policy, education, and learning. Since the last time I joined, it was 2004, and there was no formal education, no formal learning process around public policy, right? So when I got into this field, and I got into this field by accident in 2004, it was still everyone's area. It was not a specialized field till then. And I wish webinars like this were there at my time. I wouldn't have learned the lessons hard way, so there would have been some hand holding by experts that could have happened. But yes, even after 16 years of practicing in this field, I consider myself as a student and not as an expert of public policy till now. Just want to give a brief snippet of my professional career so far. I did my bachelor's in computer science, and then I did my master in business economics from the university. It was in my final semester during master's that I got placed in Associated Chambers of Commerce. This is ASSOCHAM. And what I thought to be my beginning of my career as an economic researcher was actually a first and continuing tryst with public policy field, right? So rather than using my formal education in economics, ASSOCHAM, due to certain organizational changes therein, used me as a liaison for VAT. At that point in time, 2005, VAT came into legislation, and from 2004 till 2005, they used me as a liaison for finance ministry, primarily revolving around VAT and their implications. And I can't thank the then Secretary General, Dr. D.S. Rawat, more in my life, because he hand-holded me for the first 6 months. Then he dealt and beared with my imperfections, which I still have, right? So from that aspect, he was a patient and tolerant man who gave me my first break. After almost 15 months at ASSOCHAM, and there was my first beginning and continue still with corporate policy roles. I started off my corporate policy roles from ASSOCHAM at Reliance. From Reliance, I moved to Ranbaxy. From Ranbaxy, I moved to Yahoo. From there, I moved to Punj Lloyd. And for last 4.5 years, I'm with Adobe. And I'm still love it. And from, just as I said, I may have got into this field by accident, but this field has been nice with me and has kept me gainfully employed.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So You are currently the Senior Manager of Governmental Relations at Adobe, and you lead their advocacy related to policy issues that impact their business. Could you tell us a little more about your role at Adobe and how it feels to work at the intersection of the public policy and tech worlds?
Yeah, at here at Adobe, my role primarily entails developing and maintaining strong relationship with key government officials so that we can educate them and improve certain policy whenever required. The other aspect is to partner with marketing and the uh, communications team so that our we to broad base our positive message and positive influence with government. The third area, and which is very unique to my role here at Adobe, which I have never done prior to my role here at Adobe, is to source potential sales opportunity and provide sales lead to the sales team. Something which I have never done. This is the first time that business development role has been incorporated with the public policy role. On the intersection between public policy and tech field, I'll say I'll uniquely positioned because I'm working for a tech major like Adobe, where apart from advancing company goals, I can also positively change how government interact with citizens, right? So technology can help save cost, it can increase efficiencies. Anyone who has an experience of dealing with passport office, the paper-based passport office, what we used to have 10 years back and what we have now, can vouch for the digital transformation that has happened. And the need for digital transformation in government is all the more. Digital India, the program that the Prime Minister came out in 2015, has already reduced corruption and intermediaries to a great extent. Technologies like Jam, Trinity, and services like DBT, they are now corruption free. Now, you can be rest assured that the actual intended recipient is receiving the money, not someone who is mediating in between. So from that aspect, even going forward, if I were to you know if government becomes paperless, it has huge impetus for environment. So from that aspect, it is a huge intersection. And even for any public policy to be impactful, it should be data driven, and technology can help in bring in new data sets. It can help better data sets, and with analytical tools like AI and ML, government can always make better decisions. So from that aspect, it is always nice to be working for Adobe, where you can always project your thought leadership, not just in advancing company goals, but changing people's life as well.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. So you've been working in the field of public policy for 16 years with all sorts of organizations, all the way from like Yahoo to Ranbaxy. What challenges did you face in these 16 years, and how did you like manage to overcome them?
uh, I may have faced many which can go beyond the half an hour that has been allotted to me and aware. But let me bring the one which are clearly highlights of my career. I've always welcomed challenged for the fact that challenges bring along with them the opportunity to turn them into achievements. So from that aspect, I've always been open for challenges. And the personal challenge that I've been facing ever since COVID situation has hit, that there is no real challenge coming my way, right? So from that aspect, it's just the ancillary work that I'm doing. So let me begin with the one that I did at Ranbaxy. This was about the Section 35(2)(ab) of the Income Tax Act. So Section 35(2)(ab) now where provides weighted deduction of 200% for any amount that has been utilized on research and development. So, uh, and that was there in 2005 budget, and we realized in 2006-7 that there was a hearsay that the government, just to boost revenues, might delete that particular section. And we, along with certain other pharma companies, went and we had an industry association called Indian Pharmaceutical Alliance. We went to finance ministry, gave submissions, gave presentations that how it's going to adversely impact the Indian pharmaceutical industry's ability to come out with a new product, because all till now what we have is the process based pharma companies, but we are not a product based pharma companies. So,
Hmm.
and that was received pretty well by the Ministry of Finance, and that's section 35 2ab that was there in 2007 budget as well, and what I hear is still continues. So that was a huge success at that point in time. The other one, again, at Ranbaxy was there was an OTC product, or at least at that point in time, what we used to believe an OTC product called Revital. And there were certain authorities which were not agreeing to it. They thought of Revital as a drug. We contended, we took certain medical practitioners, we took certain literature, and we projected while the active ingredient in Revital is ginseng, it has other supplements like vitamins and minerals, which the authorities thought make it a drug. But when we said that primarily 90% of what Revital constitutes is ginseng, so it should be an over-the-counter product and not be declared as a drug. Had it been declared as a drug, we won't be able to advertise it in media or anywhere else, and then there will be we would be subjected to price approvals from NPPA. So again, that was a success that, going back very long back, 12, 13 long years. At uh, Yahoo, I would say that we wanted a share of government advertisement, that social campaigns that government run, like Jago Grahak Jago, Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao. So those campaigns were only available on print and TV, for the fact that there was no empanelment process of for websites. So at Yahoo, we took again the help of media. We took another association's help. It was Internet and Mobile Association of India, and we got like-minded companies to second with us. We went and made a pitch that why. As more and more Indians are getting online and they are spending more time online, this medium should be empaneled for government to advertise, and it will have far more reaching effect on people, because they are newspapers people may read or not, but if you are online, if you are on Yahoo homepage, you'll certainly see that particular ad that they are going to display. So from that aspect, it was again a major success going back, say, 8 long years. And most recently here at Adobe, and something which is on top of my mind is, about a product which we got legal clarity regarding Aadhaar usage. So, this there was a service regarding e-signatures that we used to offer till 2018, and then there was a Supreme Court ruling that uh, was interpreted in a manner that was anti-industry, and we pitched with Ministry of Electronics and IT for an amendment to the Aadhaar Act, and which finally happened, and it got us the necessary clarity, and we are now in process of getting that service back on for our customers. So these three, I would say, at this juncture would be the very top of my mind, that is what were the major achievements and major challenges of my life. When they were not achievements, they were challenges, and then just as I said earlier, they turned out to be my major achievements.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's super heartening to hear that your work at Yahoo and with Adobe has actually contributed to society so much and like helped spread awareness among citizens that really need this information. So of course, I'm sure that throughout your journey you've learned a lot. And so, what advice would you give to youngsters who are interested in pursuing public policy in the corporate world?
Well, I certainly don't know whether I know a lot, but yes, I can share my 2 cents. So, if I were to say, on top of my mind, as an advice for anyone who sees a policy career, and specifically if it is in corporate life, is to get to know business pretty well, right? So, many times, and or even earlier when I joined this field way back 16 long years, A good public policy won't professional won't be reactive, so he won't relegate himself or herself to just crisis management. They should have the ability to integrate public policy with business strategy and corporate development, whether it is the sales function, whether it is the HR function, whether it is the facilities. One can always integrate public policy with various other functions of the corporate, and that helps you gain not just the expertise, it gives you a different perspective to look at the role itself. Rather than just crisis manager, people should see you as business decision makers as well. The second aspect of it is just as I mentioned in my career, I have worked with various industry associations. So many times government think a lone voice as a single company agenda, right? So you need to get along with like-minded companies which have similar interest, and pursue what you want to say and get it seconded through an industry association, whether it's CII, FICCI, ASSOCHAM, or various think tanks, so that it is not seen as a lone single company voice, but it is heard as a larger collective industry voice. The another area is to work with media. Media recently is playing great role in when it comes to shaping public policy, and senior officials, even ministers, they read newspapers. They have a dedicated team to track various development status and monitor whatever news or opinions have come on specific to their ministries. So it does impact and influence their viewpoint. The last thing I would say is to research and analyze. So a good public professional always research and analyze the best global practices and find out what worked for certain country earlier and what didn't, and so that they can propose similar offering to the government officials here with the kind data, substantiating your argument with data and fact makes officials far more receptive to your idea, right? So they understand when you crack numbers that a certain policy is going to increase the GDP by 2%, right? So for when you say those numbers, the government officials become far more receptive. And last, not a subject matter for this particular session, is your ability to build a relationship, long-lasting relationship. I would say at the juncture where I am, a difference between a good public policy professional and a great one is all about relationships. Your ability to forge new relationship and while maintaining the old ones is what the critical differentiator is between a good policy professional and a great policy professional.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much. I'm sure that all of our viewers found that really helpful. Before we move on to audience questions, I just want to inform the audience of a very special opportunity for them. If there's anyone in the audience who really likes Policy Matrix's work, we are open to internship opportunities. We are going to be linking an internship application in the comment section until this webinar is active. So please go and apply and make sure that you make use of this opportunity. But yeah, now we're going to move on to audience questions. The first question for you is, how does the corporate side of public policy differ from the governmental side of public policy?
Well, completely different. So it is sitting across the table, right? So on government side, you have the authority. All that you require is data and arguments to shape it. On our side, we have the data and numbers, but we don't have the authority. So that is where the role of public policy professionals like me, and hopefully anyone who is amongst the audience, and specifically the person who asked this particular question, is our role. We are the interface between the policy makers who have the authority and the industry who have the data and the reason to ask for what they are asking for. So that is our role. We play the bridge between the policy makers and what the industry wants. So that is the role. It is a completely different world sitting across the table. Here you go with folded hands, and there the person may have all the authority, right? So it is a very unequal relationship, but so it is a whole completely different thing. Having said that, government and senior government officials, the level of joint secretary and above, they are far more responsible. They want to take decisions in the best interest of country, so they do make almost all stakeholders consult. They are data driven. Once you make them see the data, they are data driven. They have a stakeholder consultation. But coming back to the question, there's a completely different world altogether, right? Between you and on the other side, it is, while the intent and objective is same, it is a different world altogether.
Okay, awesome. The next question for you is, how is working in the policy sector different from working a regular MBA job?
Uh, Let me say first how it is different, but let me. I was actually going to say it is not very different from regular marketing or MBA job. End of the day, you have a product or a service to sell. You are selling your service. Over a period of time, the knowledge that you've been able to gather, you are selling it internally to the corporate, and you are getting rewarded for that as well. So just like any head of marketing is getting paid and on roles of company, a head of government relations or policy is also just another employee, and you sit across the table whenever the India council meets, whenever the key leaders across verticals meet, you are amongst one of them. There's nothing less or more. Marketing head is no more than what you are in the system. So from that aspect, uh, when it comes to the corporate side, there is not much difference. What is difference is what is the level of fulfillment and what you really like, what you really aspire to. Marketing or a sales job will have far less gestation period in terms of achievement, right? So if you can meet your daily number, you can meet your monthly number, you can meet your quarterly number, you can have a yearly number to achieve, and you will be uh, assessed according to whether you meet those numbers, whether you've been able to meet those numbers. In a policy case, the gestation period is way long. It can be 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It can be even, so encryption policy that I was working when I joined Yahoo has still not come out when I'm here working for Adobe. So, so from that aspect, uh, but how it is different is, and this is again different from people to people because this is more about your perception. But for me, it has given me far more feeling of fulfillment because the kind of people that I interact with, generally a marketing guy will never know the who's and who's of the world, right? So people like senior secretaries, CEO of Niti Ayog, they just read about them in newspapers. They just view them on TV, but you get the opportunity to meet with them, the people who matters the most, and you get to say, once you turn those challenges, as I mentioned earlier, when you turn those challenges into achievements, you get to say that this was something which I did way back, going back 12 long years or 10 long years. So what you consider as a fulfillment is based on perception and perspective. But from my perspective, I would say that I feel that having spent 16 long years, I have to be honest that this field has been extra nice to me. I've been gainfully employed, and yes, I've been able to make 2 cents worth of my name in this field. So from that aspect, this field has been nice. Not much of difference when you look at the material aspect, but from a fulfillment part, you will feel far more fulfilled after achieving what you have achieved than let's say another marketing job or a sales job.
Yeah. Okay, it's great to hear that you're loving working in the policy field. The next question we have for you is, what are the technical skills which come in handy while working in the public policy sector?
Technical. If I were to say, the only technical things that I knew was using Microsoft Word and Excel, and that is something which everyone should know, regardless of what field they are in. But having worked for two technology majors and currently working another in the third one, I would say that it is always good to understand business. Just as I said even earlier, get to know the business. When you understand business, you come across people who know technology very well. So just as I mentioned about the Aadhaar usage, I connected with the document cloud team, got to understand the technicalities, got to know the technical architecture, got to know the flow of how where the data is going to rest, where servers is going to be built in. So once you get to know the business pretty well, you get inclined towards the technical details all by yourself, right? So I'm not an engineer, I'm not a lawyer, but once you get interested to achieve something, you tend to learn those. So I've turned into half an engineer and half a lawyer because of working in policy. So from that aspect, you do not require anything. All that you require is an self, being a self starter and the ability to take initiative.
Okay, awesome. The next question is, what do you think is the best way to enter the public policy field? Would you suggest doing internships, fellowships?
Fellowships are far and few. There is the only one that I know is of LAMP Fellowship, and there may be some other uh, associations and things like that would be doing fellowship. But internship, and I, just to since this was a question that was asked, I got into this field by internship. So way back, even before I joined my career at SHM in 2003, I did 3 months internship with FICCI. So from that, there was an association that began actually when I said that my tryst with policy began at SHM. It was actually false now that if I were to count my 3 months at FICCI as my first engagement with public policy field. So from that aspect, internship is an easier option. But yes, policy field, the challenge is that you do not have big teams like a marketing or an engineering team will have big teams. So from that aspect, the possibility of getting an internship with a big firm again is huge, right? So an intern with me, I just had one intern this summer. So from that aspect, there is only one per company, but yes, that is an easier option to get into this.
Okay. How do you think corporate public policy will change post COVID-19?
So that depends how much impact and how long it's going to sustain. So if it was to go say tomorrow or in 2 months, I won't say the style of working is going to change completely. But yes, what there are certain aspects of COVID that are going to remain. So the ability to engage virtually. So over last 4 months, the who's and who's who would have never been online have been doing various webinars. They have been doing meetings virtually. So some of it will have a rub-on effect on many other people, and it will have a stay-on effect for some time. So from that aspect, even if COVID situation improves, there would be some fear of COVID that would remain, say, for 2 to 3 months. Will have a lag effect of 2 to 3 months, I would say. From that aspect, the virtual part of policy may change the entire discourse. But apart from that, policy field very unlikely to change. So what can change is government idea about a certain policy, and they would include many virtual meetings into it. The process part of it can change, but definitely not the policy shaping. The policy shaping would be still be driven through data and the actual foot on the ground. So if an agriculture policy were to take place tomorrow, it would still be based on the real farmers, the productivity of that land, what wheat and rice cultivation has happened. So from those aspects, those numbers are not going to change whether pre-COVID or post-COVID.
Okay. Thank you. So you suggested that it's important to study business strategy for a career in public policy, especially if you plan on working in the corporate sector. So why is this still lacking in public policy schools?
Yeah, so so I've never been to a public policy school. When I got into this field, there was no public policy school per se, right? So we it was way late in 2008 that IIM Bangalore came out with the first public policy course, and then there have been many at I think ISB has one. Then there is Jindal Law School and other law schools that have public policy built into their LLB course. So from that aspect, there wasn't a public policy school earlier, but yes, if there is a disconnect with business strategy, then for a corporate to hire you, the reason becomes all the more less, right? So one needs to know marketing, one needs to know finance, one needs to know HR, and then integrate the policy. I agree it cannot be as good or as deep as working real time in a corporate, but at least the broad contours of HR, of marketing, of various functions at corporate should be taught. If it is a lag, and I really don't know whether it is or not, but since it is a question which has been asked, I have to presume it is. And if I were to presume that it is actually not a good scenario.
Yeah, understandable. Okay. The last question that we have for you is, what kind of corporate policy should universities implement so that they're competitive in this informative age?
What I didn't get that question again, if you can.
What sort of corporate policy should universities pursue to be competitive in this age of information?
Of corporate policy or of public policy? Of corporate policy.
Yes.
Okay, so I would say that of corporate policy, the best way to understand corporate policy for public policy professionals is to get far more deeper association with corporates during your course. If the institute and university can have better tie-ups with corporates during the first 2-3 years of your study, whether it is through the bachelor course or the master's course, so that by the time you head out after your course, you would know what is expected out of you as a public policy professional. I don't want one to waste their internship period, so that it could be, and it worked out for me, right? I did my internship, just as I mentioned, in way back in 2003, and that helped me in shaping my career post my MBE. So from a corporate policy standpoint, to understand corporate policies better, I think there should be an institutional linkage between the university, the institute, and the corporate.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All of your answers are super insightful, and we'd really like to thank you from Policy Matrix for joining this webinar. I'd also really like to thank the audience for joining us for this. Just a reminder, you can apply to intern at Policy Matrix. The link is in the comments section. And I'd just like to remind you all to stay tuned with Policy Matrix through their social media to see what's coming next. So thank you so much. Have a good day, Mr. Mitra.
Thanks, Navya, and thanks Policy Matrix for inviting me. Bye.